This is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show, and today I'm pleased to have iconic punk vocalist of Black Flag, the Circle Jerks, and now the band Off, Keith Morris.
For years and years and years, I was always, we're going on tour. I was the first one there. I was the first guy making sure that the van was clean, because it's going to get ugly and it's going to get dirty, and we're going to be out there we could be out there for 3 or 4 months, even though all of that ended a while back. So anyways, I quit a band that I started 30 years ago, and I realized that I didn't have to quit the band. I would just shrug my shoulders, and I had a girlfriend that described me as being the little duck at the pond that zoomed down to get the little fish to eat, and then zoomed back up, swam back to the top of the pond, and started shaking all of the water off and paddling along and just getting along with it, getting along with whatever you needed to do. And that's what I'm doing. In the process of the one band shooting down all of these songs, the really sad thing is that there were a couple of guys that sided with the guitar player that didn't even get the opportunity to listen to the lyrics that I'd written in the vocal arrangement for the songs of theirs that I'd worked on, and the songs that I wrote with Dimitri. Now maybe there was going to be some kind of backhanded, in the shadows kind of move to, well, he wrote the songs, but we could add our names to them because we're playing them. You know, that kind of crap goes on all the time. Mm-hmm. And I know about that because I was a part of that at one time. And I've made my apologies. And I also said, you know, there was a point in time where we didn't have enough songs we had a show coming up and we didn't have enough songs. And I went to the guys in the band and I said, so what guitar riffs, what parts did you write for any of the songs that in any of the other bands that you were in? You know, and all of a sudden there's like 6, 7 riffs flying around, and you know, I didn't know that. You know, I was all the way in party mode, so I wasn't paying attention to these riffs that were being lifted from these other songs, and all that kind of stuff goes on anyways because it's all been played before. But I didn't know that it was so blatant. Mm-hmm. And that would have just been me not paying attention to what was happening. Getting back to walking away from a band that I'd been in for 30 years, I had a problem with it, but it's been a year. And I got stuff going on. I don't need to look back. No turning back.
So
I'm moving forward.
So you have been moving forward, and Off has gone off. I mean, it's exploded. So tell me about how long, what do you think the life expectancy of Off is? How long will Off stay on?
Dimitri and I are the songwriters, mm-hmm. and we are the ones that came up with the plan or came up with the band. Now, I want to get back to a situation that happened. We had Stephen McDonald and Mario Rubalcaba mm-hmm. at the top of our list. One of my friends saw Mario perform with his band Earthless and said, Keith Morris wants to talk to you. Here's his number. Give him a call. Mario called me 2 days later and said, Keith, what's up? And I explained to him, I'm playing with Dimitri, we're starting a band, and we want you to play drums in the band. And Mario had played with Dimitri in the Burning Brides. He did a series of shows with the Burning Brides on the East Coast when the Burning Brides were opening for Queens of the Stone Age. So those two already have history, and they know about each other, and they know each other's capabilities. And Mario just volunteered. He said, I will drive from San Diego to play in this band. So now we have a guitar player, a vocalist, and a drummer. And I run into Stephen McDonald a couple of weeks later at a Jay Reatard show. Jay Reatard playing at the Echo in Echo Park. And after the show, Steven's upstairs. I'm going to go upstairs to say goodbye to the guys and say great show and do all of that ass kissing and all of that back patting stuff. And I wholeheartedly meant it because the show was pretty fucking amazing. And Steven's standing there with a couple of his friends, and I'm looking up at Steven and I'm explaining to him what's going on, and I'm starting this band, and it's Dimitri, and he knew Dimitri because he's a fan of the Burning Brides, and of course he knows me because going all the way back to Black Flag, I can tell you Black Flag and Red Cross stories, Black Flag and the tourists at Pollywog Park, all the way back to when Steven was 11 years old. So I'm explaining to Steven, and he seems kind of uninterested. And I get around to mentioning that Mario Rubalcaba's playing drums, and the two guys that are with Steven just all of a sudden are like bouncing off the walls. And they're grabbing Steven and they're pushing him, and it's like, Steven, you gotta play in this band. Mario Rubal, he's the greatest drummer ever. So Steven's smiling, and I said, look, I'll give you a call. Because I've got his number. I've talked to him on the phone. I got him when I was working at V2. I got Steven a production gig with a band called Be Your Own Pet, and just one of my ways of atoning for my sins. And I run into Steven like another 2 weeks later at a place called the Center for the Arts in Eagle Rock, and we're watching this band called Entrance. I'm standing next to Steven, and he looks down at me and he said, Keith, this room would be amazing for a recording. This room is perfect for a live recording. And my plan originally was to get a bunch of recording equipment and use this room during the day. When you can make as much noise as you want during the day because there's cars going by and there's construction and helicopters flying overhead and emergency vehicles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, you know what, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to take a cigarette break. So he goes outside, and I follow him, and I said, Steven, I'm going to go to my car, I'm going to bring you a CD. And I go and grab the CD. The CD was 3 songs that Dimitri had played in my living room on a Hagstrom guitar, half wood, half plastic, through a little Marshall, like a Marshall practice amp that you would find backstage at a gig for a guitar player to warm up on. So I give him the CD, and he calls me back like 2 or 3 days later, and it's just like all he can say is, when do we start rehearsing? So our first rehearsal, because of everybody's schedules, once again we're in schedule land, but we're also dealing with 3 fathers, 2 of them with newborn kids. So, be good dads. Don't be dropouts. Don't be deadbeats. Be with your kids. Be good fathers. I wholeheartedly back that. So because of the schedules, it takes us like 2.5, 3 weeks to get in a rehearsal space. But when we rehearsed, it was unreal. It was incredible. It was, Dimitri was in awe of the way that the rhythm section played the songs. Like being aggressive when they needed to be aggressive, and like laying back when it needed to be just a little bit more musical. And not like a punk rock thing, not like a hardcore thing. Just more like a real angry rock thing. Like Mario reminds me of his favorite drummer, John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. Just like heavy, and when he needs to be aggressive, he's aggressive. Plus he's Latino, which adds that flavor. And that's the reason why there's so much stuff going on the cymbals, which at first kind of bothered me. But I came to the realization that there is a flow. I'm not going to mess with the flow. These guys have been playing for quite a while. They know what they're doing. Plus, they're insanely talented. You don't say, no, you play this. This needs to be played like this. You're doing oopa, oopa, oopa when you should be doing ba, 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 ba. You let these people do their thing.
Yeah. So the fact that these guys are so amazing, do you have a problem with the band being called a supergroup?
Well, people can call it whatever they want to call it. If they want to call it a supergroup, so be it. I have no control over that. I don't call it a supergroup. I call it a group of guys that are like, they're all really cool, really great to hang out with. Everybody's friendly. There are no vibes. No real ego trips. For me, it's refreshing because these guys are the complete opposite of some of the other people that I'd been playing with.
What was unique and inspiring about the recording process for Off's first EP?
We wanted to go to tape. We wanted to go analog. Our whole recording process wanted to be like the original Black Flag Nervous Breakdown recording session. But there's a big difference because we're older and because of some of the things that are happening in our lives, it's not like what it was back then. There's more modernization, there's Pro Tools, and Steven wanted to produce and engineer, and he works on Pro Tools. And he was like, guys, we're going to get what we want. It's just as easy and just as cool to get it on Pro Tools as it is to pay for tape and smaller tape and having the machine and taking the time to, it's like downtime where you got to rewind the tape. It's like with Pro Tools, you play the song and, hey fellas, I think we can do better. And you hit a button and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're playing the song again rather than waiting for the tape to rewind. The vibe was that we were in a really cool studio, a low dig. It had a little bit of grunginess to it. It had a lot of antique kind of stuff in it. But the difference is that the Black Flag recording, we were all like partying, we were all aggro, we were hating a lot of things, there was a lot of tension, even amongst the guys in the band. It was like, is this going to work? We're unfamiliar. This is the first time we've ever been in a studio. This is the first time we've ever recorded anything on like a big board. So there were all of those question marks. With Off, it was like we'd rehearsed the songs. We knew the songs, even though once we got in the studio, we had to play bits and pieces to remind a couple of the guys in the band what the parts were. But for me, I was just totally psyched. I was out of my mind because we'd worked hard on these songs, writing the songs. We put a lot of time and effort into like learning the songs. And here it is. Let's blow this stuff up.
Tell me how the iconic Black Flag album cover artist Raymond Pettibone got involved in the Off EP, doing the cover for it.
Raymond Pettibone is a friend of mine. And what had happened was a lot of years passed where we didn't hang out. When I left Black Flag, I became a member of a band where we got in a van and we were on tour. And so I missed out on a lot of friendships that I had developed with people, and Raymond happened to be one of them. And one day, about 2 years ago, I just decided to call Raymond out of the blue just to ask him what he was up to. And in our conversation, I ended up getting in my car and driving down there, and we hung out on the Venice boardwalk and ate some sandwiches and shot the breeze and, reconnected. And I told him that, I started working on a new band, and he seemed very interested. It piqued his interest, and one thing led to another. I was able to wrangle him into becoming the 5th member of Off. And he does all of our artwork. Granted, there's certain walls that have been placed in front of him to where you can't just get to him unless you're like one of his close friends.
Yeah.
So we get to go into his workspace. We're eventually going to end up playing a party in his workspace. And the deal with the party is that it's his guest list. He invites whoever he wants. If there's 5 people there, if there's 50 people there, if there are 100 people there, they're all people that are his friends. None of them have anything to do with us. It's not a party about us. It's a party about Off playing for our friend.
Did he hear the band first and then make the album covers?
I had a request from him for lyrics, but he'd not heard before the work. See, a lot of the work that we're using is stuff that he'd already done. He's the type of guy where you can go in his studio and there's stuff on the floor, everywhere, on the walls, under the tables, in the bathroom. And he's the type of guy, it's just like, if you see something that you want, just take it. You know, at one point we were sitting down and he said, Keith, I understand what happened to you because it was the same thing that happened to me when it came to SST Records. He said, if you ever get into any kind of a jam, you have any kind of issues, you need any kind of help in any way, all you need to do is just come down here and you can take whatever you want out of here, and that'll make things good for you. Basically what he said is you could sell this for whatever, you know. I'd heard at one point he'd sold a piece for about $500,000, but I could be wrong. I mean, you know. I know that he gets a lot of money for his work. He's an iconic artist. He's one of the greatest artists of our time, and he's certainly very influential. And what we're hoping to do after our box set comes out with all of the artwork, all of his accompanying artwork, that we start moving forward where when I start writing lyrics for the next group of songs, when I give him the lyrics, he can create artwork based on the lyrics.
Would you consider Off to be anti-authoritarian?
Off's a party band.
Okay.
We would like to invite you to the dark party. Anti-establishment, yes. Anti certain things that have been set up that are not correct and not good for the average everyday Joe, yes. I'm 55 years old, and you would think that I would like move into a space in my life where things would be nicer and calmer, and you know, I could sniff the flowers and grind the coffee in the morning and have a beautiful wife and kids, and the little wildlife laps water out of the little stream that runs down the hill, and the sun shines, and all of the naked children dance on the sides of the hills, and everything's beautiful and everybody loves each other. But that's not the world that we live in. We live in a really fucked up, horrible world. And granted, you know, something beautiful, something really nice, something really great comes along, and you really want to attach yourself to that. You want to grab onto it, you want to run with that. But ultimately, I live next to one of the busiest streets in the world, and that would be Sunset Boulevard. And so much ugly stuff goes on that street that it gets tossed in your face, and there's no way of getting around it. So I'm basically just a mirror of, I'm a reflection of the things that I see. And all I can do is just be truthful and call it as I see it.
There's going to be a box set that's...
Okay, we have a box set coming out on, I believe, November 23rd. Mm-hmm. And it consists of 4 EPs. The first EP that is already out, and the remainder of our songs. There's 16 songs. All of the artwork is Raymond Pettibone. There's a booklet with an introduction by Raymond Pettibone. And there's some lyrics, there's some photos. Our record company, Vice, a lot of people are like, well, you sign with Vice and they're just, you know, it's basically a magazine and an online marketing group. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are like, well, they're so trendy and they're cooler than now and they're the hipsters. And the fact of the matter is that our other opportunity was with Epitaph Records. Mm-hmm. When we played the music I played 4 songs for Brett Gurewitz, who is one of my best friends in the musical world. He almost fell out of his chair. He said, Keith, whatever you want to do, this is the best stuff I've heard in 4 or 5 years. Whatever you want to do, let's do it. So we were geared up to go with Epitaph. And the more we thought about it, is that that's the world that we're a part of. That's the world that we've been a part of since the very beginning. And why not play for some other people? Why not get tossed out into the faces and the ears of other people? Why not go someplace else? Let's take a chance. Let's go to the party. Let's play with all of these bands that nobody would associate us with. You know, I've already been bombarded by all of the punk rock, hardcore bands, a bunch of the Warped Tour bands wanting us to play with them. All of that's going to happen. That we knew that was going to happen. Make something else, make something different happen for us. You know, why don't we play with Neon Indian? Why don't we play with Deer Hunter? Why don't we play with No Age? Why don't we play with Wohunks? Why don't we play with Best Coast?
Yeah.
These are all bands that we're not associated with. When I first started going to concerts, I'd go to a show at the Palladium. There'd be 5 bands, and none of the bands had, the only thing that they had in common was that they all plugged into the electricity in the back wall, and there was somebody playing on some stringed instrument, and there was some guy bashing away on the drums, whether it be Steely Dan opening for Mott the Hoople, you know, with a bunch of other bands in between. Or a perfect example would be Rufus with Shaka Khan opening for Lynyrd Skynyrd at the Whiskey A Go-Go. It doesn't get any more polar opposite than that. And everybody was having a great time. The bikers and the Southern Boogie guys were dancing with the Soul Brothers, and you know, everybody was just having an amazing time.
Well,
and
music
that's what
is
it's supposed to be.
Music is supposed to bring people together. Tell me what inspired the 4 songs that are out right now. Darkness.
That would be our addiction to oil.
Okay.
You know, we had the big thing down in, we had Katrina come through, and then the big oil spill, and it was like, why didn't Barack Obama just send the Navy in there and say, you motherfuckers are going to clean this up, and I don't care who you are.
Upside Down.
Upside Down basically is me just ranting about some of the guys that I used to hang out with.
Black Thoughts.
Black Thoughts is we get bombarded with, if you read the LA Times, 15 people were killed in Baghdad today, or 6 people were found buried in a ditch down in Michoacan, down in Mexico, or, you know, if you add up all of the body count for a single day, it's like, are you kidding? We you know, helicopters and bombs and jets and bayonets and grenades and rocket launchers and the mafia and the Democrats and the Republicans.
Panic Attack.
Panic Attack. Me being at the age that I am, I occasionally wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and start pacing, and I'm shaking and I'm sweating and I'm thinking, being a diabetic, that I'm suffering hypoglycemia. But actually what's happening is I'm wondering, why do I exist? Why am I here? What am I doing? I have all of this, I have all of these material things, but there's certain things in my life that are missing, and maybe it's because who I am, maybe because I'm so outspoken, maybe I'm the guy that will say fuck you to the people that need to be told fuck you too, and nobody else has the balls or the ovaries to do that. So what basically is happening is that I'm having an anxiety attack or a panic attack. And while we were writing the song, before I even wrote the lyrics Dimitri had told me that he had been going through the same thing. Like your heart starts pacing and pumping, and you're just like, what is this? What's come over me? This is ugly. I don't want to be like this. This isn't me. I'm better than this.
What's next for Keith Morris and Off?
I hate to be Mr. Promote myself. This is what's going on. But you go, if you need any info, if you want to find out what we're doing, if you want to find out where you can get our music or where you can get it for free or watch videos or YouTube or what have you, we have all of those links on our Facebook page. Yeah, here I am, Mr. Guy that lives in a cave talking about computers.
All right, Keith Morris, thank you for being on the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show. All right,
Eric Blair!
That's right. All right, this is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show with Keith Morris signing off. Bye-bye.
The Blairing Out Show.